final curtain. Rowan's parents were on a cruise, and as he now worked remotely, they asked him to stay at their place, the house Rowan had grown up in, whilst they were away. It was strange to be back at the old homestead and sleeping in his old bedroom, his old own bedroom. Rowan had moved away 10 years before, had been married and divorced, and lived in the big city now. He no longer knew anyone in town, any of his old friends, and he couldn't be bothered looking anyone up. His parents were only going to be gone 6 weeks anyways. One thing Rowan noticed right away was how quiet it was. Rowan's parents lived in an upscale neighborhood with a house that backed onto a man-made lake, and once the darkness took control, the only sound was an occasional car passing in the street. Rowan was used to the sounds of the city and had trouble sleeping the first few nights. He found the silence unnerving, but eventually he adjusted himself to his new old environment. But on the third night, something woke him. Rowan's room was at the back of the house, the head of his bed just below the window, and at 3 a.m. he was roused by the sound of the geese on the nearby pond, honking, honking, honking loudly, as if in distress. Wow, something has sure stirred them up, Rowan told himself. He tried to ignore it, go back to sleep, but the terrorized cacophony was too great, and he finally had to get up. He padded down the hall to the kitchen and was just about to step out on the back deck when something stopped him. Fear. It was so dark out there. In the city, there was always some ambient light, but out here, it was pitch black. He couldn't even see the houses on the other side of the lake. There were no lights in any of the windows, no lights at all. Anything could be out there. Choosing discretion as a better part of valor, Rowan crept back to bed. It was just geese being silly geese. Probably saw a fox or something. But still, the birds kept squawking, and it was a long time before he fell asleep. And in the morning, the backyard was full of feathers, and on the deck, what appeared to be spatters of blood. A few nights later, Rowan awoke at 3 a.m., but this time it was because he could hear his mother's voice. Rowan. The voice seemed to be coming from the living room or maybe the kitchen. But wait, that couldn't be. That couldn't be his mother. It was impossible. She was currently off the coast of Alaska or someplace like that. But then the voice came again. Rowan. And he knew he would have to investigate. Of course, he found nothing and was beginning to think he had dreamed the whole thing when he stopped at the sliding glass doors leading out to the deck. There was something. There was something in the backyard. It was standing next to one of the trees by the back fence. And it looked like what? A deer? A deer? A huge deer standing on its hind legs? 7, 8, maybe 10 feet tall? A huge deer standing on its hind legs? And with huge, jagged antlers? Rowan's nostrils caught the scent of rotting meat, rotting flesh, and then he heard distinctly, from the thing in the backyard, his mother's voice saying, "Come here, Rowan. Rowan, come here. Come here, Rowan." Rowan spent the rest of the night in the guest room, which faced the front of the house. He had locked the door and shut the drapes tight, but he slept no more that night. Rowan spent the next few nights sleeping in the guest room and had begun to think that he imagined hearing his mother's voice, that it had all been some sort of strange waking dream or nightmare. And then, one night, it rained. Hard, very hard. Rowan wasn't sure if it was the lightning, the thunder, or the colossal downpour that had woken him up, but the storm was so intense it was impossible to sleep. He got up, wondering if he should be checking the house for water damage, maybe look in the basement. Were all the windows closed? Rowan crept through the darkened house, stopping at the sliding glass doors leading to the deck, where he could see the backyard. And he could see it quite vividly. The deck, the trees, the back fence, see them all clearly in the brilliant flashes of lightning. Rowan was hypnotized by the strobe effect of the dark shadows alternating with bursts of blinding white light. He stood at the glass doors, mesmerized. And then, suddenly, the kids were there. They were short and dark, a boy and a girl, holding hands. Rowan was about to slide the door open when he was struck by a wave of icy fear, which made him almost lose control of his bowels. What were two young kids doing out at 3 a.m. in the middle of a storm and on a school night? But he had hardly finished the thought when he heard a voice say, "Please, Rowan, let us in. Let us in. Please, Rowan. Rowan." In an instant, Rowan had locked himself into the bathroom on the other side of the house, sitting on the commode and almost palsied with sheer terror. And then he noticed the bathroom shower curtain was closed tight, and he had left it open after his morning shower. So why were they closed now? Why were they shut? And who had shut them? Rowan stood up and reached out, hesitated, drew his hand back, reached out again, hesitated. He had to know. He had to know what was on the other side of that shower curtain. He had to know. He hesitated again, and then he pulled the curtains wide open. Rowan's parents came back early after their son disappeared. Police had conducted a wellness check and were unable to find any trace of him. To this day, Rowan has never been found. Rowan's parents no longer live in the house, which is for sale. Oh, and the asking price? $666K. 666. A question. If you are employed, but happen to disappear, are you still considered to be working remotely? Just asking for a friend. If this is your first visit to my channel, please consider subscribing. My name is Warren, and I write and tell original ghost stories and original horror stories featuring such cryptids as the Night Floaters, werewolves, and the Black-Eyed Children. So again, please consider subscribing. Please help me to reach my goal of 2,500 subs. Till midnight. Cheers. Pictures used in today's video, courtesy of Pix Here, that's PX Here, while the music was the spine-tingling Aftermath by that patron of the internet, Kevin MacLeod. Working alone in the studio today with no tech support and some real sound issues, so hopefully this turns out. But you can let me know in the comments below whether the gremlins got me or not.